Hey everyone, we're going to be doing something a little different this week. We are going to be playing a custom scenario for the tabletop game Star Wars Legion, a pretty popular tabletop game that plays similarly to Warhammer 40k and Bolt Action, another World War II kind of tabletop board game. If you're familiar with any of those, you'll see a lot of crossover in terms of the rule sets of those into this game. It's been one of my favorites ever since I started playing it. Picked it up right around the launch period of the game, and I used to be a pretty big 40k player, but ever since I started playing Star Wars Legion, I've really never looked back. Just such a fun game, and really solid gameplay mechanics. One of the few games I've played where I feel like there's no need for any house rules whatsoever. It's just that solid of a foundation. So that's my little intro as to Star Wars Legion as a game. What we're going to be doing is playing a custom scenario that was created by another YouTuber that goes by the name of Crabon. This guy has been someone I have followed for many, many years before Star Wars Legion even came out. I played a lot of the old Fantasy Flight games, now owned by Atomic Mass Games, like X-Wing, Star Wars Armada, even their tabletop role-playing game, Edge of the Empire. And Krabok is someone that has been engrossed in their community ever since the beginning. He was one of the play testers for Star Wars Legion when it first came out, and someone I definitely have a lot of respect for when it comes to playing this game and listening to his tactics, advice, and all that stuff. And what he came up with was a custom scenario that is based off one of the Marvel comic books that came out a couple of years ago. It's called Vader Down. And the premise is basically Darth Vader's TIE advance, I believe, gets shot down, and the rebels see a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to try and take down the Dark Lord of the Sith. And like a whole legion of rebels swarm around him, and I think in the comic book they all end up dead. Not to spoil it, but I don't think they could have possibly killed him because, like, Darth Vader gets killed by other people. But anyways, yeah, they all just end up getting absolutely massacred. And this scenario is definitely designed around that. Darth Vader is worth about 800 points and running on a custom stat line that Krabok has designed. He's super powered up, he's got custom abilities, and he will definitely destroy pretty much any unit in the game of Star Wars Legion he comes into contact with. So we gotta build a list of about 800 points of rebels. I did my best to make a thematic list. I don't actually own the comic book, but obviously Krabok talks about it in the YouTube video, and I've actually heard a lot of good praise about this one, so I've seen like a couple of panels on the internet, read through enough of it, and I figured what would be thematic is taking as many Rebel Troopers as I own, which is about 5. I gave them marksman rifles, I gave them Z6s, a couple of them have frag grenades. I took 3 commando squads. 2 of them are the 2-man specialist squads with sniper rifles, and then another one is the full 5-man squad. The 5-man squad is going to be proxied as Tusken Raiders. Although they don't know it's Anakin Skywalker underneath that mask, there's a sense of something in the Force that told these Tusken Raiders to go to the battlefield here right now and seek vengeance for crimes committed long ago. And we'll have to see if they're able to do that. In addition to that, I took like a generic rebel commander. I figured that was kind of fitting, it's not like they had Han Solo or Leia in the comic book, so we'll take someone like that. I also took an IG unit bounty hunter. IG-11 is definitely not the bounty hunter you would want for this mission, but I figured, it's just kind of cool and thematic. I feel like the rebels would bring a droid like this, and we had a lot of extra points to spend, and I figured why not. He's got the gunslinger ability and a couple of other things going on that really don't synergize too well with the scenario, but I think this list is kind of just about having fun and testing everything out and seeing how it goes. So we'll have to see if he can get his points worth in this game. Last couple of purchases were an AT-RT, and it's got the little Gatling laser. It's like the Z6, but it shoots black dice instead. hoping for... I mean, you can see the marksman rifles and, like, that weapon. I'm really just hoping for as many crits as possible. I figured this guy's gonna have a lot of either dodge tokens or surge tokens going on, and it's gonna be hard to punch through his defense. I also should note, I didn't want to spoil, like, what kind of abilities Darth Vader had. I knew he was gonna be, like, 800 points and have a ton of hit points and a jacked up stat line, but I didn't actually read the card or anything before making my list. I just kind of wanted to go into it not knowing exactly what he had in store for me, which you could say was probably a bit of a mistake. I would definitely change some things after playing this for the first time, but I think that concludes everything on the Rebel list. You saw the Darth Vader card. Let's check out the battlefield and get ready for the battle report. So, as per usual, if you watch my Warhammer battle reports, I did a bit of a smaller table than standard Star Wars Legion games here. It's a 48 by 48 square. But I used all of my 40k and or Star Wars Legion terrain for this, which is kind of new, never before seen on the channel. We've got Darth Vader's TIE Advance, an old toy I had from when I was a little kid, still somehow preserved to this day, crashed in the middle of the battlefield. Debris is flung everywhere, which will serve as good cover for Darth Vader when the battle starts. Other than that, a couple of other things to make note of on the battlefield are the buildings that are set up. There's a factory that's kind of hard to see. It's in the top left corner. It won't really come into play, but there is a little pit stop repair station in the top right, and a building that looks like it's had roof blown off in the bottom kind of center area of the board. Those will be great positions for big squads of rebels to set up and take shots at Darth Vader. We're moving on to the deployment phase, and just a reminder again, I kind of went into this scenario a little bit blind as to the power of Darth Vader and how he'll work exactly with like his mechanics and everything and his extra powers and such. So I thought it made sense to just like surround him, you know, kind of like in the comic books, and just have a range 3 or more barrier between all of my units and him. I figured that would be enough distance that I could guarantee a shot or two before he can close the gap. And yeah, that's about it. Set up my units in a circle. All of my elite units are stacked up on that pit stop building and the little hill with the tree on top of it that's next to the building. My Tusken Raiders are there. Both the sniper teams are set up on top of the pit stop building, and I even put my rebel officer over there. I figured those are like my hardest hitting units. I want to make sure I get orders on them when necessary, so yeah, that's why I put them there. Everything else, trooper-wise, ATRT and Bounty Hunter, they're all just kind of scattered about, and I'm going to hope for the best. So that is the deployment phase. So not fully understanding how the mechanics of the game work, I decided to foolishly launch an ambush, and that order token went to my Tusken Raider squad. I wanted them to get the first volley on Darth Vader, and it was a juicy one. I believe I deal about 4 wounds to the Dark Lord of the Sith. But the retaliation from Darth Vader is swift. Either on the first activation he has, or the second one following right up, he will just move right towards the Tusken Raider squad, and perhaps this was my mistake. They were a little bit close. I think I probably should have put them more than range 3 away from the Crash TIE Advance, but you know, you make mistakes. Anyways, he moves right towards us. I want to say one of the sniper teams gets a shot off at Darth Vader, but he just uses his dodge token or just rolls really good on his save and deflects the blow. And then he closes in with the Tusken Raiders. Only one of the Tuskens remains after Darth Vader's first volley of attacks at them. And while he's doing this, he has a force ability that lets him basically pick up like barriers or pieces of debris from the TIE that crashed in here, and he can just fling them at enemy units. And he picks up one of the barriers while he's fighting the last Tusken Raider and just smushes one of the whole sniper teams on top of the roof. A savage blow. After he finishes off the Tusken Raider, the force commander of this whole little rebel operation here is, I don't know, like 5 feet away from Darth Vader. He whips out his pistol, takes a quick shot, gets a dodge token, maybe gets one lucky wound in, but is just quickly executed by Darth Vader. After that, he picks up the barrier or chunk of debris that he used to crush the rebel sniper team on the rooftop of the building and proceeds to just whip it across the remainder of the roof and wipe out another sniper team. In the first couple of activations, I have lost all of my elite units as well as my force commander. Things are already looking pretty bleak. But after he finished off all of my elite units over there, I realized there was a bit of distance between us. And I tried to take as much advantage of that as I could. I moved my guys into better positions, took overwatches, and yeah, basically while I was trying to just get random activations into position, Darth Vader was creeping around the side of the board, and my poor ATRT, which wasn't able to activate in time, is crept up on by the Dark Lord, and he takes a slice right at the legs of it. He deals about 5 damage. I believe the thing is literally lingering on 1 wound now. I rolled a critical hit result, and I don't remember them all off the top of my head. You'll have to forgive me. It is the one where I roll a white dice, and I believe if I get any paint on the dice, it means I will lose 1 action during my activation. What is fortunate is the ATRT will actually be able, by some miracle, to activate before it is chopped down into a pile of scrap metal. And I roll the white dice, and sure enough, it doesn't lose its activation. I unfortunately don't have any recording of how much damage it did, but I want to say Darth Vader rolled pretty decent on the defense against the ATRT. I got 1, maybe 2 wounds through on it, and then afterwards Darth Vader activated and just obliterated the thing. I did have a squad of rebels right next to that ATRT that had already activated earlier on in the game, and I think that was like kind of the very last thing to happen for turn 1. So at the start of turn 2, I'm basically just going to have a rebel squad point blank range from Darth Vader unload and hopefully get some serious damage in. And this right here is the trail of carnage that Darth Vader has left. He left the rear of the TIE Advance, slaughtered the Tusken Raiders, my Force Commander, the snipers, then crept around the edge of the board, took out the ATRT, and is in prime position to take down another one of my rebel squads. So start turn 2, since my Force Commander is dead, I got a couple of the IG cards, but I pretty much am just obligated to play standing orders for majority of this game, and I placed my 1 order token on that Rebel squad right next to Darth Vader. They happen to have frag grenades, I rolled a dice, it's a juicy dice pile. Then Darth Vader rolls his defense dice, and I think he takes all but 2 wounds. Not that great. The only upside to this result is he has an ability on his card. It's called like Anger or something along those lines. And when he takes 3 or more wounds from an attack like that, he gains a dodge token and an aim token, I believe. And this is something that will happen quite consistently throughout this game. I just constantly am getting 2 wounds, 2 wounds, 2 wounds, and Darth Vader will not be able to get that aim and dodge token for free, which is nice. After the wounds have been dealt, Darth Vader moves forward and chops down the entire squad, either in 1 or 2 attacks. I do have a couple of units positioned somewhat favorably for the aftermath of this. The squad I had positioned in the building of interest, the other one that's kind of in the bottom center of the board, decides to move out and position themselves on the bridge nearby to go on Overwatch and cover the squad that is closer to Darth Vader. The squad close to Darth Vader lets loose an attack, gets a couple of wounds in. My IG unit, due to his bounty programming, has to take shots at Darth Vader whenever it's possible. Takes an aim shot, I think he chips in a wound. Not too bad. The unfortunate side is that while I'm doing all these shenanigans, Darth Vader is kind of circumventing that Overwatch that I did, and he decides to use the Force and pick up the squad that just shot him nearby and pull them closer and closer until they are so close that he can attack them without triggering the Overwatch from the unit that's positioned on the bridge. And he does so, and he chops down the entire squad. I believe at this point I am down to 3 Rebel troopers and the IG unit. We have gotten a decent amount of damage done this turn, but I would say the numbers are looking pretty thin on my side. We're a little bit less than half of our standing force here, and Darth Vader is probably a little bit past the halfway point on his hit points. I don't know, I mean, I guess you could say it's pretty even, but I feel like he has the edge right now. At the end of the turn as well, he's kind of positioned at the bottom of this hill, and my Rebel Squad at the top does have shots on him, but he'll get cover, and there's not much that I can do to avoid the charge. But we'll see. Could go well for me if that Rebel Squad on the hill gets a really nice volley at the start of the turn. And that's one thing that's kind of nice about this scenario. It seems to me, unless I'm misunderstanding something, that the Rebel player will always kind of start the turn off, and Darth Vader will have the second activation. So you can kind of plan for that when the turn's coming to an end. And that's what I was doing at this stage of the game, starting to understand some of the mechanics a little bit better. And hopefully that squad will get a good volley in. I decided to use the IG card this turn just because Darth Vader was being a little bit crafty, using his down tie as cover, and well, not even just cover, just completely blocking my line of sight on him. And I didn't want that to happen on these final couple of turns. I also figured IG was getting closed in on right now, so better to use it now than not use it at all. The Rebel Squad takes a couple of shots at Darth Vader, rolls pretty decent on his defense, finishes them off. I have another squad that was positioned nearby that's kind of going to be the meat shield for the IG unit, and they take another volley on Darth Vader. Damage is really starting to add up, but I am down to my last Rebel Squad after that one gets chopped down, and just the IG unit, so really down to the wire at this point. Darth Vader's limping on not too many hit points right now, and I don't have many bodies left to throw at him. We play a standing orders. Unfortunately, can't play IG's self-destruct card. That would have been great, but he hasn't taken enough damage yet, and Darth Vader is unfortunately in combat with my Rebels. Doesn't really matter where I put the order token. He finishes off the Rebels, and he begins closing in on IG. I want to say IG is able to sneak in another wound, maybe two, before he finally goes down. I do recall that his armor and durable metal frame that he's made out of was able to take one full attack from Darth Vader's lightsaber with like Pierce 3 and 6 red dice and Impact 3 as well. But the armor managed to take off one of the dice, and he just got a good enough roll on his armor save. It wasn't enough though, because after that he just dies from the second volley from Darth Vader's lightsaber. I have one troop squad left, but Darth Vader is seriously limping on barely any wounds remaining at this point. Anyone could take it. And he just so happens to be sitting out in the open, a prime shot for this Rebel squad. I think I had to move so I couldn't take an aim token, but yeah, unload a full volley into the Dark Lord while he's out in the open. I want to say I did my signature 2 wounds to the Dark Lord of the Sith, but, you know, those 2 wounds, even though it's only 2, are really starting to add up. And I play a standing orders afterwards, and I think we're on turn 5 or turn 6. Oh, Darth Vader also moves up before the end of the turn after I shot him there. And instead of doing a full move action, he does half a move action and picks up and puts one of the barriers nearby in front of him so we can get some hard cover. Standing orders is played. Big surprise. Go big or go home, Rebels. We aim our guns and take our shots. It was terrible. Granted, he had cover, but yeah, I think I got 3 wounds total. Now, granted, he only has 3 left. He could roll 3 blanks, but nope, I only chip him for 1 wound. The fortunate part is, I remember measuring everything out, and we took some time just to make sure there was no possible shenanigans that could be done. Darth Vader cannot force pull my unit within range of a charge right now, nor can he just make it naturally. So what he decides to do is only go half the distance. He moves up, and then he takes his little cover barrier thing and he moves it with him. His only other option that I could see at this point would be dropping the barrier on top of me and just trying to deal some damage, or perhaps making another type of play that we will discuss after the battle concludes. The final standing orders of the game is played, as well as potentially the last volley these rebels will get from Darth Vader. They roll the dice. Pretty much the same thing I got last time. 3 hits go through, the cover gets rid of the rest of them. Darth Vader makes the roll. He blanks on every single one of them. We have done it! The rebellion has won! Darth Vader has been defeated! These are the true heroes that the rebellion needed. People always talk about Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Han Solo, and Chewie, but no, these are the real faces of the rebellion right here. And as such, I think they've earned a commemorative walk amongst their peers and some medals, just like the end of A New Hope. Congratulations, men. You've accomplished your mission. Darth Vader has been defeated, and the Empire will surely crumble after. We won't have to send millions of lives after those stupid Death Stars and try to blow those things up. It was all so simple after all. If only we knew it was about the boots on the ground and the every man and woman of the galaxy, such as Dran the Grand, Deadeye Permalicious, Farmer Joe, Squad Leader Hicks, the Athorian with a shotgun, and good old Moop the Duro. I just want to give some quick final thoughts about this scenario. I was a little bit hesitant once it started kind of unfolding and I saw Darth Vader just shooting around the battlefield, destroying whole units after every single attack. But once it kind of started to slow down a little bit, and strangely enough, I started having less and less activations on the field, I kind of found it a little bit more engaging and a little bit more strategic even, like I could plan out my moves a bit better. And you could say that that's less the game scenario and more me approaching it with no preconceived notions, other than watching the Crabog video on like how it played a couple of months ago. So I think that that was pretty interesting. I definitely would have taken a different list had I known how Darth Vader was going to operate, and I think it could be a lot more competitive, I dare say, with this, but I think it kind of excels a bit more as a just casual, fun game style like this. I mean, I ended up winning it with just like this kind of fun rebel list here, so I don't really know how much more competitive you need to get with it. I've also just never been much of a power fantasy or like superhero type guy. I always find it a little bit more interesting, the perspective of the average Joe kind of people. I think that was another reason going into this. I was excited to play, don't get me wrong, and just try out this scenario because it really got my imagination going. I'm kind of making my own things similar to this. But yeah, the 30 hit point thing and just like one character taking down a whole army, like as cool as that is for a lot of people, like I'm less interested in stuff like that, and more interested in like kind of like the core gameplay mechanics and stuff and how that operates a bit more. The balancing of that presentation of characters. So that was like kind of something I was wishing for going into this. I was like, like I wish it was something maybe a little bit more smaller scale, and like Darth Vader didn't have 30 hit points. It was just like kind of used the cards that are already available for the game in like a custom setting and like learn how to make it work type thing. But this was still a lot of fun, and it actually really feels like you're playing like a custom game mode, and there are so many options for it in terms of like your Darth Vader hunting list and how you will play Darth Vader in the battle. He has enough custom abilities to like kind of have a good amount of options during his turn sequence. I know the card is pretty big for him, but just playing it, I will say maybe having like one more option available to him, and like maybe it's something a little bit risky, like if he does it, he has to roll a die and he could injure himself or something. But having one more action available to the Darth Vader player, I think would be nice in terms of their strategic capabilities. Or maybe just allowing one force upgrade slot, so like you can kind of customize your Darth Vader for the scenario each time going in. I don't know if that will break the game. It probably would, so maybe take that suggestion with a grain of salt. Also, the suggestion I wanted to make for the Empire player, I mentioned it much earlier in the video, but The Darth Vader player could have easily ran away during those final couple of turns, and I'm sure been able to have blocked line of sight on my final Rebel squad, and just drawn out the timer and basically won the game that way. I made a little note of it. We just kind of felt like that wasn't what Darth Vader would do in that situation, be running away from like these 6 lowly rebels. He would die fighting, so we decided to kind of play it out that way. But yeah, just kind of factor that in as well. I think that's a telling kind of moment as to the game mode. Darth Vader easily could have won this. Also, when I was making my list, I used the points on the card. I don't use any of the updated stuff, just for simplicity of making this video. But overall, this was a really fun scenario. Gameplay time of about 45 minutes, maybe a bit longer given setup and whatnot. But yeah, really not that bad. Pretty efficient. I think it's got that level of customization, especially on the Rebel side of things, taking your Vader hunting party that gives it a good amount of replay value. And playing Darth Vader is definitely not super straightforward. There's a lot of different avenues for using your force powers and maneuvering. I definitely give it a recommendation and would say if you were in a buddy, or I guess it's a solo game as well, if it's just you hanging out and you need something to do, this is something worth giving a try and getting all your Star Wars Legion minis on the table. Anyways, that's all I got for you for now, folks. Have a great day. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.